Hi, everyone, and welcome into the first episode of the H-Town Heel Show. I'm Noah, and that's Heel right over there. And this is kind of like a test run of our first Astros show, where what the plan here is just two guys talking ball. Right now, it's the offseason, not too much to talk about, but we'll try and upload regular episodes when something happens this offseason, and kind of just give it a run at this. We're both very passionate about baseball, Astros baseball, and just we just like wanted somewhere to share it. So we hope that maybe you guys will be able to like what we're saying, help us grow, and it'll help us, just be better Astros content creators. And thank you all once again, and welcome to the first episode of the show.
Uh,
And
for sure. And I can't wait to get in all the news and everything. Although I don't know what's more chilly, the weather or the news as recently.
yeah, man, it's been a very cold stove so far for us. Just a bunch of depth moves, a bunch of you know, Rule 5 starting pitchers, I mean, right now it's kind of just Hunter Brown and the Island of Misfit Toys in that starting rotation.
Yeah, unless you, I guess, kind of count Ronald Blanco. Really, there's nothing really to hope for. I mean, I guess the development in Spencer Arrighetti. Yeah, not too much to be excited about right now for the Astros starting pitching.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald Blanco, Hayden Wesneski, those two guys both had Tommy John last year around or a little early on. They're probably not going to be back till late July this upcoming 2026. And as we saw last year, you can't rely on guys to, just come back from injury and be immediately successful.
Yeah, for sure. The good news is we gotten lucky on a few call-ups. One of them being Eric Getty, and another one being Colton Gordon and Braden. Sometimes I get those two names mixed up, but you guys know who I'm talking about. So we gotten really fortunate on guys that we called up, and hopefully we don't have to rely on those guys this time. Hopefully we can actually get some legit depth on this team, so that way in case guys go down, we don't always have to gamble and rely on our AAA or any minor league pitching at that.
I mean, it's always nice to have guys like Colton Gordon who can come up and just like do a spot start, get you like 5, 6 innings of work. In the case that you need a spot start, and having all this depth now is really great. But you're losing Framber Valdez, who was a guy who's going to go out there, give you 180 plus innings every year, and it's very hard to replace that, especially on a budget, which is what Dana Brown and Jim Crane are trying to do. I mean, yeah, I understand that the Astros have won and not spent a ton of money, but at some point it kind of gets to like, what is the end goal for this? Is it to get more just like mid-tier starters from a trade and try and just like go the controllable route, or are you going to invest a little bit? I mean, you have some money this year. You had a lot of contracts coming off the books, but I think that first domino needs to fall in order for the Astros to start making some moves. And whether that's Jake Myers trade, Isaac Paredes trade, or Christian Walker trade, let's hope it gets done soon.
Yeah, and I think that's the number one question is like we don't even know what direction we're going in yet because we only made like what one signing so far, and that was the pitcher Wise.
Ryan
And
Ryan Weiss from the KBO,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I we don't know what direction we're going in yet because we haven't really tried to trade Walker, at least as far as what we know. And we gotten actually more news about Jake Myers. So, but neither one has been done so far. So I don't know, and we don't know what way we're going. Is it the tearing down money and trying to get, more controllable starters back? Or is it just getting guys like Jake Myers and just, trying to get as much as you can from him and whatnot? It's just like Astros fans are just like, what are we doing? What's going on? Or, are we trading Izak to get a lot of those options back? There's a lot of questions out there that have yet to be answered. And we don't understand what's taking so long, and it could be a majority of things, but we got more questions than answers right now.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, with Isak Paredes, he is the most valuable trade asset you have right now from the offense. He's only making like 7 or 8 million this year. He still has a couple years left to control. And a team that fits, there are some teams that fit him with their ballparks, but he's probably the one person who can net you back a young, controllable starter, maybe a younger outfielder, something like that. But the reason it's so unpopular to trade him is because he's even last year when the with all the injuries when the offense was struggling, he was really the only bright spot. He could work counts. He could go down 0-2 and the next thing you know, he's up at a 10, 11 pitch battle and then he gets on base. He doesn't strike out a whole lot. His defense is surprisingly underrated. When I hear other communities talk about potentially trading for him, they're like, "Oh, his defense isn't good." But I remember seeing games last year where he was laying out for balls and he has a really good arm. And I think if they do trade Christian Walker, it could transition well to first. Yes, he's not the tallest guy, but when you have Carlos Correa at third base, Jeremy Pena at shortstop, hopefully you're not having to go out and stretch and die for balls all the time or having to pick balls all the time. But I definitely think it would not be, just me as a fan personally, it would not be my favorite move to trade Isak Paredes.
Yeah, if obviously I think we're all in agreement here. If y'all had to choose one to get rid of, it would be Walker. As for the defense, I agree with people. It's a mystery box. Do I think it would be as bad as people say it is? Absolutely not. I think Fredis could get the job done at first. And obviously, I actually like his bat. Arguably a little bit more than Walker's. I like the fact that he can work counts. I even heard some people say this. The one thing he brings, um, I wasn't gonna say that Walker doesn't, but yeah, Walker does this too. Is work counts. And actually, that's one thing that Walker does. But the one thing that he brings that definitely Walker doesn't is the strikeouts. If my calculation is correct, he doesn't strike out nearly as much as Walker. Uh, are and also, um. I I don't know about you, but I like the presence he has in an Astros uniform. He seems like he just fits. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe it's the Latin club.
It seemed like such a natural
Yeah.
fit because the Astros have been trying to get him for I know at least a year before we actually got him. The fit being super well, Dyken Park just tailor made for him to hit 25, 30 plus home runs a year. He opted, I know he, at the end of the year, in the heart he showed, like when the Astros were in the playoff push, he came back on whatever was left of his hamstring from the previous two injuries in the year and tried to give them something. That kind of heart is just what you're looking for in a player. And granted, I know he opted not to have surgery on it, but Dana Brown says that he's going to be fully 100% for spring training. So we'll take their word for it. But yeah, you saw this, like, even going back to, I used to live in Tampa Bay for a little bit, and it was during, like, I think it was 2023, and Isak Paredes was going absolutely crazy that year, and he became my favorite player on the Rays. And then once he came over to Houston, I was super excited. And in his first year, he had a lot of success here before the injuries.
Yeah, and not only that, like I said, maybe it's also the Latin community. I mean, I remember his comments one time of him saying he was happy to play in Houston because, it had a high Mexican population. And small things like that can, make you want to play better. And, because like sometimes, for example, it's just how it is. And maybe that's part of the reason why Shohei wanted to stay in California, because they do have a high Japanese population. Same with Japanese players wanting to stay on that coast, or Cubans gonna want to stay somewhere in Florida or whatever. Sometimes that does play a factor, in a player's comfortability and where they want to play, not just the money or the years, so on and so forth. And that that might be why he wants to stay in Houston long term. And what wouldn't we? And he's young. I think he's like what, 27?
Yeah, he's like 27, 28 years old.
Yeah,
I was kind of surprised when I figured out how young he is.
yeah. And compared to Walker, who'll be like 34, 35.
I think Walker's actually 30, going on 37.
Yes. So the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, we might actually have no choice but to eat Walker's contract because of his age. And
I I don't think he's Jose Abreu 2.0 though. I think he's better than him. I definitely think like I still like he could still be productive. He's still a good fielder. If you look at the back end of last year, he had like an 800 OPS. He kind of turned it on after the All Star break, and that leaves you a little bit of promise that he can give you a more productive year next year if they do decide to keep him. But once again, that how are you going to find time for Isaac Paredes to play every day
yeah, for sure. But the question is, though, how much of Walker's contract do you think the Astros are willing to eat? To
in a trade for him? He's owed $40 million over the next 2 years, so about 20 million per year. I definitely think that they're going to have to eat at least probably close to 80% of that contract.
Yeah, and that's why I think, especially the more and more we dwell on this, they might have no choice but to keep the both of them. If not, definitely trade Paredes, which is gonna be sad because like it's like you're in this like conundrum or pickle, whatever you want to call it, where it's like either you find a team who's really desperate to take on Walker. But the good news is though, it's not like Walker had a complete bad season.
No,
Before we go on and
I
say
don't think
like,
he had a his season wasn't like terrible. It wasn't Jose Abreu levels of
yeah,
bad, like I said earlier.
yeah, because I do have to stop myself. Yes, he's up there in age. Yes, he strikes out more than Paredes and everything like that. And he did have a bad first season. But the thing that people are gonna ignore that we watched every day, us Astros fans, is that a lot of his outs were literally lineouts that were like 100+ exit velo.
Yeah, I
And
remember early at
yeah,
the beginning of the year, he was like super unlike he was just lining balls out left and right, and just like but the thing is when he wasn't lining balls at that point, he had the strikeout issues, but then again, like once again, I think it's possible for him to bounce back next year, and I think a team could be willing to take a chance on him more than say, look at the Phillies. The Phillies are kind of in a similar situation with Nick Castellanos, and Castellanos is owed like $20 million or 20 something million, and they're begging for someone to take him, but he has no value as a defender anymore, and his offense is not what it used to be. But I think Walker is definitely better than Castellanos, and I think a team might be willing to take a chance on him more. I know me and you off air talked about potentially trading him to the Mets for like a Kodai Senga type deal, but they went and signed Jorge Polanco to play first base slash DH. I mean, I don't think it's completely off the table for a potential Mets deal because they're trying to trademark Vientos apparently, and that would give more opportunities for Polanco to DH, and they could still use a cheaper first baseman than what they would have paid for Pete Alonso.
yeah. And at the end of the day, we are talking about Steve Cohen here, who, has money, way more money than I think any owner in sports, arguably, if I'm not mistaken, like any sport. So, I mean, him taking Walker's contract, even if he decided to take it as a whole, it's not going to be a big deal whatsoever. And him trading us Mark Vientos, who at one point was a promising prospect, who is now showing that he needs to be
He
somewhere
needs to change the
else.
scenery.
Yes, because like maybe he falls under the pressure of New York. You never know. Sometimes players just enjoy playing, in a city that doesn't have that much spotlight, and some players thrive under that pressure. I guess Ventos doesn't. We'll see, but it's not like also Houston doesn't have a lot of pressure now in and of itself. And I think some fans lose sight of that. Like we were talking to, ironically off air, Houston has went from like, oh, this is cute to be here, It's just another baseball team, like another, no offense, Reds, Pittsburgh, We're probably just gonna go here, visit to, oh, dang, that's the Astros. We got to take this series seriously. And so there's pressure here now to win if Vientos does come here.
Um, Another potential like thing I looked up, potentially maybe we'll go back and trading him to the Diamondbacks. I mean, Eduardo, you could look at him for Eduardo Rodriguez. Eduardo Rodriguez hasn't had much success in his years with the Diamondbacks, but he's a guy who's going to go out there, be your fourth starter, give you 160 plus innings with like a at his peak, he was a very serviceable starter. But then again, didn't work out in Arizona. His contract isn't the best, and that's what I feel like the Walker trade is going to be. Is pretty much just bad contract for bad contract if the Astros want to move on from Walker.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, the D-backs might be a really smart location for Vientos because right now there's not a lot of pressure to win over there.
You mean for
Uh,
Walker?
yeah, yeah. Well, for both Vientos and Walker, actually, there's not a lot of pressure to win over there right now at the moment. And on top of that, Arizona just always seems like a relaxing place to play, even when they are competing. Another good place for Walker, if I forgot who their first baseman is, so this might be another good place depending on how they view Walker. Maybe the Padres? I
Padres potentially, yeah.
yeah, like there are some potential suitors, and depending on how they want to attack it, there's always the Marlins who didn't have that bad of a season. So if the Astros are willing to eat some of that contract, and he really really wanted to trade him, the Marlins can get in on there because I think their first baseman was maybe like Connor Norby. Again, I don't quite remember, but yeah,
And
it
then
did.
I think the Pirates could be a team that they said they're wanting to put on some more money on their deal. They signed Gregory Soto, who's he's an okay reliever. He's not great. I saw him with his time in the Phillies, wasn't great, but they gave him like a 1 year, $8 million deal for a reliever, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. So maybe they are willing to take on more money. And Christian Walker, he's from Pennsylvania. Granted, he is more so from he's closer to his family's closer to Philly than Pittsburgh, but I feel like him being back there would be pretty cool as well. But then again, how much money are the Astros willing to eat? How much money are other teams willing to take on? We don't know. So we're us Astros fans. I mean, we're just sitting here waiting for that first domino to fall, whenever
Yeah,
that will be.
exactly. And even if it's Paredes, at least we'll know like what direction we're going in now. Granted, I rather keep Paredes than Walker, but even if it's Paredes, I just want to know what direction we're going in. And if we do trade Paredes, I would love at least like an everyday ready MLB ready pitcher. I said every day, but you know what I mean. MLB ready pitcher with
MLB
maybe
a
like
good
a
MLB ready arm with
yeah,
control. Yeah,
yeah, with the prospect. Yeah, he doesn't have to be top 10 or anything like that, but I would say probably at least like top 20, top 30.
yeah, top 20, top 30 for sure. I mean, even I feel like me personally, no matter what the package is, I'm just gonna be sad that the Astros because I love Esau Paredes. I just think he's just like the perfect fit for us, and just like it'll be tough because he was one of the centerpieces of the Kyle Tucker trade.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're Data Brown, I don't know how you can trade Izak. I really don't know, cause like it's not like he's expensive. If anything, again, you know my thoughts on Verlander, but I'd rather trade Verlander. Sorry, I'd rather trade Walker and then sign Verlander back. But
I'm
that's just my.
I'm I'm indifferent on Verlander because the Astros need pitching at this point, and we know they're not going after Ranger Suarez or Michael King or any of the big time starters that are still out there, but they just need people who can go out there and give them innings, decent quality innings for not that much money. And I think Verlander on like a $7 to $10 million deal would be perfect. Max I'd be willing to go for him is 12 million for a 1 year deal. But like I said, you need pitchers. You need all the pitching you can get at this point because losing Framber Valdez is you're losing a very consistent, durable starter. No matter how many times I've critiqued him before.
Now, here's the question. I understand we were in the mix of a playoff race, but obviously we knew at the trade deadline we were not going to re-sign Framer. But do you think they should have traded him regardless?
I feel like they should have listened to offers because I the Astros. What I liked what they did is that they knew they weren't going to re-sign Tucker, and they traded him. But like you said, they were in the midst of a playoff race. They needed all the starters they could get with all the injuries that they had, and so they decided to hold on to Framber Valdez. I mean, I don't blame them for not trading him, but I definitely think it would have been beneficial to at least maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't say, but maybe they did listen to offers, but they just like didn't like enough of them, but they didn't officially say that they did, so I'm just gonna say that they didn't. It would have been beneficial.
Yeah, because like in hindsight, obviously you could say they should have traded him, but obviously, you know, all you can do is watch. Because my only question is now, basically, now that we're definitely losing Framer, is I guess you can say considering how Moneyball works, do you look at any pitcher right now and say like that person can at least be a reliable everyday pitcher, rather it's one we can trade for or one we can sign on the market and be like, that guy, obviously he's not going to be Framer, but he can at least be a Framer in terms of like a reliable everyday lefty or even just starter in general for us.
I think there are definitely some of those pitchers out on the market. The Astros, like, we're not looking at any of those tier one guys. Obviously, I would love Ranger Suarez, Michael King, Tatsuya Mai from Japan. Those guys would be great, but all those guys are demanding upwards of $150 million, and they're not going to do that. So, as we move into those, looking at those lower tier two guys, tier three guys, you got plenty of guys you could look at. You got Chris Bassett from Toronto, who I don't is probably not going to be brought back because they got Trey Savage. They brought in the guy from the KBO. They signed Dylan Cease to that massive contract. And I definitely think that he could be. He said, and he was an Astros defender. He said, I like Bassett because he said like it's time to move on from the cheating scandal. You know, every team did it type deal, and him and his relationship with Jordan was kind of funny because they would tease each other because Jordan would hit him deep every time, and them kind of joining forces would be funny. He'd give you a veteran present, and it probably would only take a 2-year deal, maybe add an option to it to get him. But but then again, the Astros have said that they want to get the majority of their moves done during a trade. I mean, via a trade. So whether it's getting those younger, controllable starters for the rotation, and then you attack the free agent market from there.
Yeah, obviously you know me. I would love to see a in my that would be my priority number one actually. If I was Dana Brown, is get that done. Cause like I love his passion. I love that he wants to take down the Dodgers. I just love the whole thing. Obviously, when he signed any pitcher from any different league, it's a gamble, but I think it's one that you have to take because I actually do watch some Japanese professional baseball. I actually do. And I can tell you, Mai is like a really good pitcher. I mean, obviously, he's coming over here. Obviously, that doesn't always mean it translates to the MLB, because and it doesn't mean over there they don't have like they're not like Major League Baseball in their own right, right? It just means over here we're a completely different style. Like over here we're more fastball heavy with a
High
little bit more break.
velocity,
Yes. And over there they can throw you have pitchers with high velocity, but it's more breaking ball. That's why the splitter is more famous over there. And so it's just about adapting to different styles. Now, can he? I believe he can, especially considering the way Astros pitching coaches and staffs and everything have, coached different pitchers. And like I said, I already like his will to win and his drive. But also, like you said, there's just other people in there, like Bassett, who I would like to. And like I was also telling you that one time, if the Astros wanted to, they can literally have like an all-star rotation just by this offseason. Okay, you would have to spend money. We get that. But if you wanted to trade Jake Myers, there's a pitcher right there for sure that someone is willing to give up for him. Because at the end of the day, Jake Myers is a borderline all-star center fielder with great contact, great speed. He's not going to hit you 15 to 20 home runs, but he still has probably 10 in that bat. And in a really, really great defender. So someone's going to want him for a pitcher. And you know that. Isaac Paredes or Walker, whichever one you decide to trade, is still a really good first baseman. The other one brings what the other one doesn't. If you trade one of them, you're gonna get back a good to solid arm. And you want to dig deeper than that, well, you got some prospects that you can trade too, because you saw a little bit of what Bryce Matthews had to bring to the table. Obviously, I'm not saying let's trade him, but I'm just saying, depending on how aggressive you want to get this season and say, let's just go for a World Series title, you can. And that's the great position that the Astros are in right now with the stacked offense and a stacked outfield. Now, yeah, they might not be stacked in terms of like, oh, this guy can hit 30 or this guy can hit 20 or whatever, but they're stacked in terms of options.
Yeah, a
Like
lot of
yeah,
options.
yeah. Like, and on top of that, they're stacked in terms of like youth and seeing what this guy can bring to the table. So, like I said, if Dana Brown and the powers that be wanted to, you can have an like all-star rotation by the end of this offseason. And I say go for it because your lineup is going to be fantastic no matter what. And your bottom three, if you trade Myers, would be like what? Cam Smith, Jacob Milton, and of rotation of what Zach Cole and Zach DeZenzo, that's still
Yeah,
really good.
you got Jesus Sanchez in the mix there too, who's going to look
Oh
to have a bounce
yeah,
back year as well.
yeah. So that's really good. And then depending on which one you trade, your first baseman is going to be Izog or Walker, which again, win-win no matter what. And then you're telling me that you can have a potential rotation depending on what you do of like Hunter Brown, Imai, maybe Chris Bassett, and then let's just
All the
assume
options, the depth
yeah,
options from there.
yeah. And let's just say you don't even sign Nehemiah, okay, or Bassett, then that's still guaranteed like top 3 or 4 pitchers. Yeah,
I definitely think health is the main factor. The offense is deep. You don't need to do, in my opinion, as much, but they need to stay healthy. And the Astros did a lot of personnel switching this offseason. They brought in a new hitting coach and they brought in an offensive game planner to help them with different approaches. Because, sometimes you would look at last year, how the Astros would go into games and like they're facing a pitcher that they've never seen before or a pitcher that they rarely see. And then that pitcher goes like 7 scoreless innings, barely facing the minimum. And you're like, what is the approach? So that was, I'm assuming, why they brought in that new offensive coordinator for them. They got a new pitching coach as well. I mean, we still have Josh Miller, who's done the boatload of the work, but they brought in another assistant pitching coach and they brought in new athletic trainers as well. Because if you remember last year, so many of us were wondering about the mismanagement of injuries and bringing people back wrong. And like the Astros just not being transparent about what is wrong with these players. Why aren't they healthy? Why are they proceeding the way they do it with that? And I think that next year, definitely that all those switches could definitely help out, but we need to see it first. And based on what direction the team is going, we need to see what move they make first. And probably not going to happen soon. I mean, it's Wednesday the 17th. Christmas is next week, followed pretty much right by New Year's. So that's almost 2 weeks of pretty much being off. And if they don't make a move this week, then I don't really expect them to make a move till after the New Year. So Dana Brown, Jim Crane, we'll wait for what you guys do.
yeah, for sure. And again, we don't expect big moves. We already got our ace waiting for next season, Hunter Brown. We already got our big names, Altuve, Jordan, Correa, Pena. We can go down the list. We don't expect you to go out there, sign back Tucker. We don't expect you to go out there, and sign a Murakami. We just expect you to go out there and add pieces to win.
Make just
And
moves
yeah,
that'll just make the team better. They don't
yeah,
have to be big. They don't have to be flashy. Just productive players that will stay healthy and that will just help the chances of us winning. We're not
exactly.
asking for big moves, you know?
Yeah, because we already got the big name players. They're there.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll we'll get there when we get there, and we'll definitely be here to let you guys know of any trades, any big free agent signings. And we're hitting about 35 minutes here, so we're probably gonna wrap things up for our first episode. And just want to thank you guys for letting us into this community. Hope you guys enjoy videos. Let us know down in the comments of any ideas that you guys have or what moves you want to see the Astros make. And signing off for our first episode for the H Town Heel Show, we got Heel, we got Noah. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk Astros baseball when if they do and ever make a move. See you guys.